And now this, North Korea urging President Trump to drop sanctions. And this request comes just days after a UN report states nuclear and missile programs in North Korea were not halted, as the North Koreans have promised. To my panel again, Dean Chang, a senior research fellow with the Asian Studies Center and the Heritage Foundation. And back with us, Colonel Alan West. Dean, let me start with you. How do the North Koreans expect the United States to take them seriously when we know they haven't halted the programs they said they would, and they say drop sanctions? That's not going to happen.
No, it's not, but it's not a bad negotiating position, and that's really where the North Koreans are coming from. Basically, they are trying to leverage something for any concession that they give. So they say, okay, we've now given back 55 sets of remains. Rather than viewing this as the act of a civilized country, they view that as a bargaining chip. They want us to give them something before they'll go to the next step of denuclearization.
Colonel West, they did return 55 sets of remains. I believe the extended number, though, is 5,300. Should the president say, we'll talk to you and we'll consider all kinds of things after we get those 5,300 back, otherwise no?
No, I don't think we should extend any concessions to North Korea. We need to operate from a position of the moral high ground against North Korea. If you were to look at this as a faucet, they barely turned the faucet on. It's a couple of drips that have come out. We're nowhere near having a full capability of the water flowing. So we need to be able to get on the ground to verify what is happening. But I think from a political aspect, North Korea is trying to do everything they can at this moment to stall things because they're probably hoping that the Republicans lose in the House of Representatives, and that will take away a strong arm for the president going forward.
Dean, would it take away a strong arm? The president, whether the Democrats or Republicans control the House, the president controls the foreign policy of the United States. Would it have an impact?
Probably not, but that doesn't mean, again, the North Koreans aren't going to try. And I think it's interesting that right now the North Korean foreign minister is visiting Iran. So, again, just as there are folks from the previous administration trying to talk Europe into upholding the JCPOA, it wouldn't surprise me if they look at that and say, hey, maybe we can get some of that action in support of us, too.
So how should we respond to the North Koreans and this, drop the sanctions? What is an appropriate response from our position?
I think that one of the most important things we could be doing would be to pressure the Chinese and the Russians to make sure they don't backslide on the maximum pressure effort.
Colonel West, when I hear Dean say the Chinese and the Russians pressure the North Koreans, we're not exactly best buds right now with the Chinese with this potential trade tiff escalating. And with the Russians, I don't even know where to begin. Would that be realistic to go to them and say pressure the North Koreans?
No, I don't think it would be realistic to do that. As a matter of fact, if you want to talk about collusion, you just said that there's representation from North Korea going to speak with Iran, and we know that Russia is in bed with Iran in the Middle East. So we're looking at those Axis powers, if you want to put it that way, all working toward a singular goal. So I think the most important thing is to continue to economically and diplomatically isolate North Korea. And again, we should look at maybe reinstating some of those military exercises to show that we will maintain a state of readiness.
Dean, how would the North Koreans react if we did reinstate the exercises that the president called off?
I think the North Koreans would undoubtedly protest. They would probably hold exercises. They may renew missile tests on their own. But I agree with Colonel West. Just because the North Koreans won't be happy is not an argument for us not to do what we have to do to uphold our defenses and those of our ally, South Korea.